This G20 Leaders Summit has a responsibility not to allow the integrity and the credibility of the G20 to be weakened. In fact, from this summit, we should have a sense that the G20 has been strengthened.
A watershed moment as South Africa undertook to navigate the complex global environment. Pretoria steered the G20 presidency to focus on pressing issues facing the globe and the African continent in particular.
As this is the first G20 Leaders Summit to be held in Africa, it carries the hopes and must reflect the aspirations of the people of this continent and of the world. We should not allow anything to diminish the value, the stature, and the impact of the first African G20 presidency.
Leaders converged in South Africa's largest city, Johannesburg, and the US President Donald Trump decided to boycott the historic occasion. And it was time to get down to business, and the declaration was adopted.
There has been overwhelming consensus and agreement that one of the other tasks we should undertake right at the beginning is to execute the task that we have come here for principally, which is, by overwhelming consensus, to adopt our declaration.
The vital message that we must send to the world is that action on climate change is not a matter of asking any nation to forego the jobs, prosperity or security that its people deserve. It's about working with every nation to power the next generation of economic growth while protecting the environment for generations to come.
In Africa, dogmatic approaches imposed by foreign partners that do not take into account the specificities of African nations paradoxically risk reinforcing old patterns of dependency. This is a losing strategy. So a pragmatic balance must be found between the need to limit emissions and the risk of compromising the most advanced productive systems and preventing the weaker ones from establishing themselves.
Some of the world leaders used this opportunity to call for cessation of hostilities, where there are raging conflicts from the Middle East to the Eastern DRC.
Fragility in the Middle East, rising threats of authoritarianism and fragmentation, as well as Russia's ongoing unjustified war in Ukraine. The shockwaves of that invasion are still reverberating through global markets today. It has hit growth, driven up food and energy prices, and deepened persistent imbalances and instability across the world.
The question is simple. We must have peace in the DRC. So there are negotiations taking place. There was an agreement in Washington. There was an agreement, partial agreement in Doha. But the fact is that people go on fighting. So I think our priority must be to stop the fighting, to have a complete ceasefire.
The summit came to an end with world leaders emboldened and keen to defend multilateralism. Then the G20 presidency has been handed over to the US, despite Washington DC's decision not to be part of the proceedings.
I now say that this gavel of this G20 summit formally closes this summit and now moves on to the next president of the G20, which is the United States, where we shall see each other again next year. The summit is therefore closed.
The US has indicated that South Africa won't be invited to its summit in 2026. Pretoria has fired back, saying it's the founding member of the multilateral body.
Earlier this week, we formally handed over the G20 presidency for 2026 to the United States observing the appropriate diplomatic protocols. A few days ago, President Donald Trump made a statement to the effect that South Africa would not be invited to participate in the G20 in the United States. He repeated untrue statements about genocide against Afrikaners and the confiscation of land from white people in our country. We must make it clear that South Africa is one of the founding members of the G20, and South Africa is therefore a member of the G20 in its own name and right.
Khayelihle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.